Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. I hope you're having a great day. You're listening to the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Tersh Blissett. Welcome to the show, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So today's episode is an exciting one. It's, I say that a lot, but I really,
But this time you really mean it.
I really, really mean that. It is something that's so exciting because we're going to talk about, generating referrals and how to generate referrals without asking. And as a business owner, a lot of times in service businesses, a lot of businesses, but I know that in service businesses, we're really guilty of going into the business that we're a great technician in. And a lot of times that service tech moves into the business owner aspect of the industry. And we're used to fixing things. We're not necessarily used to going and closing the sales or asking for referrals. And so whenever somebody says, it's really easy to say, well, every time you go to a service call, ask for a referral, ask for like 5 of your closest clients or friends, who would you send us to and stuff like that. And that turns into super awkward conversations. And most of the times we're just like, forget it. I'll just hope for the best. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say today about generating those referrals without asking. But when we first get started, can you help us define exactly what a referral is?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start because I think we have overused the term referral and we use it interchangeably with other sales terms or other sales lingo. And by doing that, by using it interchangeably with other sales terms, we've actually diluted the real power of what a referral actually is. And so a referral will have two things that most other lead generation type terms won't have. So I hear a lot of people say, well, a referral is like an introduction. They're not. They'll say a referral, it's like word of mouth buzz or word of mouth referral. They're actually two different things, a referral and word of mouth buzz. Or they'll say, oh, I got a warm lead. It's a referral. I'm like, nope, warm leads are separate from referral. So most people know that someone you get cold is a cold lead, right? It's a cold prospect. They understand that. Someone you made a cold call or they came across your pay-per-click ad or they saw a Facebook ad or whatever it was and they saw your SEO and they called you directly. Like everybody understands the cold lead side. But when we start talking about warm leads, word of mouth buzz, introduction, referrals, because they're warmer than cold, we start grouping the terms together and that dilutes the power of what a referral is. And actually a warm lead, a word of mouth buzz, introduction, and a referral are 4 different types of prospects. And I tell people it's important to know what a referral is because you want to make sure, one, you're actually receiving a referral, but really because you need to know how to respond because you're able to respond differently when a prospect is referred to you than you are in any other kind of area. And in addition to that, when you get word of mouth buzz, I want you to know what to say, recognize, oh, that's word of mouth buzz. That's not a referral. Let me flip it into a referral. And so a referral has 2 things that no other sales term or type of prospect would have. And that is 1, there's a personal connection. So a referral can only be a referral when you are actually connected by someone else to the prospect. And the someone else who connects you to that prospect is going to be what we call the referral source. Some people call it referral partner. It doesn't really matter. It's just your referral source. And it's the person, right, who knows the prospect and knows they need you as the service provider. So there's 3 cast of characters, right? 3 players in the referral triangle. And so there's obviously the referral source, and they're going to connect you, right, to the prospect, and they're going to connect you. And it typically happens over email. It can happen over group text. It can happen at, like, if you're at an event somewhere and someone drags somebody over to meet you and says that they need to work with you, right? Or they have a problem and you can solve it. And so there's always that personal connection. And because that personal connection happens, that's the only time and place the trust is transferred from the referral source to the prospect, telling the prospect, when you hire this person, you'll be making a good decision. And that trust is critical to that prospect being willing to close quicker, being less price sensitive, right? And almost kind of showing up saying, just take my money and solve my problem. And that leads us to the second thing a referral has. And the second thing a referral has is the prospect has a need identified. So first we have personal connection, and then we have a need identified in the prospect, which means the prospect knows they have a problem they need to solve, which puts them in buyer's mentality mode. They're ready to at least consider solving their problem. And so they've started either someone's brought their problem to their attention and they're like, yeah, you're right, I probably need to fix that. Or they know they have a problem. And so once they enter into buyer mentality mode, they're looking for someone to help them make the right choice. Because when we spend money, there's two things we don't want to do. We don't want to waste our money, and we don't want to make a mistake. And so we're looking for someone to say, yes, I trust this company. Go use them. They are great. And so we want that need identified in the prospect. That means they're actually willing to talk about and consider hiring someone to solve their problem, and they've been personally connected to you. So it's those two pieces, personal connection and need identified, that make a referral, which is what makes the referral so magical, right? When you hear people talk about, oh, the referrals, they just showed up and it was awesome. I didn't have to work hard for them. No, you really, I mean, you did. You just don't know what you were doing probably to get that referral. And that's, that's what I teach. So don't worry, we can talk about that. But the idea there is when that referral shows up and they're so easy to close. And they didn't really want to they weren't nickeling and diming me on pricing. And they were just they trusted me and they were just solve my problem. It's because they were referred, which you don't have the prospect in that mentality mode if it's not a referral. So when it's word of mouth buzz, it's typically somebody saying, hey, did you know, Tarsha, I was talking about you the other day. Were your ears burning? I was telling somebody that you absolutely need to hire you. But you're like, who? Who is this person, right? I know they have a need, but I've not been personally connected. So word of mouth buzz is one step away from being a referral. Or they have an introduction. And so they connect you and you're like, why are we being connected? Is it because I need to go have coffee with one more person? And as a small business owner, I don't have that many mornings for coffee to begin with, right? So it's okay, great. You've connected us. We're personally connected because it's an introduction, but I don't know why. Are you setting us up because they need to hire me? You think I need to hire them? Or it's really just a networking meeting to grow my network, which all of those are fine, but we don't know what it is. So it's just an introduction. And a warm lead is when someone says, hey, so-and-so down the street, they totally need you. Here's their name, here's their number, give them a call. It feels like a referral, except for we're not really sure the person's name and number we were just given. They actually want us calling. And what they think about the person who gave us their name and number, we don't know. There's so many unknowns in a warm lead, right? So the idea there is that at that moment, you may have a name and a number, but you haven't been connected. So that we're not sure if any trust has been transferred. And you don't actually know if that buyer actually is a buyer, if they even know they have a problem. So we take warm leads, word of mouth buzz, and introduction, and we kind of morph them into, they're just all referrals. And they're not. A referral is very, very specific.
So how about Facebook recommendations? Is that still considered a warm lead? Because it's kind of a weird gray area. I feel like because they kind of introduced you, but it hasn't been a one-on-one introduction. It's more of a public introduction.
So I love that you asked that question because I've started doing some research on this because obviously, as you can imagine, I get a lot of questions around that. And so I started paying attention, when I see people they put the ISO, right, in search of a recommendation or whatever, and they put it out there. I've started following up with people and be like, hey, who'd you go with? And what I'm finding is because sometimes you post a need of, hey, I have this need, and you get 50 people are recommended. It's how in the world do you decide? Because then all of a sudden you trust no one because now you've been told by 50 people to trust 50 different people, right? And you already know you're in buyer's mode. So it is really close to a referral. And I guess the reality of it is it could be considered a referral, except it's not just you're the only person recommended. And that's what makes a referral so golden is that they're like, hey, who did you use, right? So I ask people when I see that, I'm like, hey, who'd you go with? It's the same thing with me when I was looking for a personal trainer one time. And this was years ago. But I remember getting this onslaught of people. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I don't even know if any of them are that I trust any of them more than the other, because now I have 50 recommendations. And so I asked people, I'm like, so who'd you go with? And I was always curious, do you go with the person who then immediately, who's been referred? So I'm using air quotes so no one can see, right? Who's been referred over Facebook in that post. Do you go with the person who immediately sends you the direct message? Do you go with the person who sends you the first direct message? What I have found in asking that, some people do go with the first person, but other people actually, when they're looking at all the people who've been recommended, they look at all those people who recommended someone else, and then they pick the person they have the closest relationship with and that they trust the most. So even if I have 50 people on Facebook 49 of which I may not know. We're just all in this group. And so they're making recommendations, right? I still go looking, well, who do I know on this list? Because that person I know I can trust. Or if that's not the case, if I'm like, I don't know any of these people, it's right back to just being a warm lead, because now I'm going to go through, quote unquote, like a bid process to figure out, well, let me talk to a couple of people, because now no one has more trust than anybody else. Everyone's kind of equal, which means there's no real trust. And I'm going to start the process like, okay, I've got some people to consider, but I'm not necessarily willing to hand out my money yet. I've got to go through the buyer's journey, which I go through quicker when I'm referred to someone. I go through slower when I'm not. And so it really almost just is a way to get your name right into the pot, so to speak, to be considered, but it doesn't help you get to the finish line any faster when it's social media.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. Whenever we're recommended for air conditioning repairs or anything, and I typically will try as quickly as possible to slide into the DMs, but a lot of times the clients they'll tell me, well, so-and-so recommended you and I really trust them. So that's why we're going with you. And so it's really cool that you mentioned that. So when you said that your personal connection, or I wrote down, you have a 3-part referral source, your prospect, and I think that
you.
And then you. Okay. I totally missed it.
As the solution provider.
Okay.
Yep. And so the 2 parts of that referral are happening between those 3 players, right? The personal connection happens when the referral source connects you, the solution provider, to the prospect. And then we also know that the need has been identified by the prospect. That's the reason why they're even willing to be connected to you.
Cool. So tell us, I guess, what we're here to learn, and that's kind of how to generate those referrals without asking.
Yeah, what's the secret sauce, right?
Right.
How do we do it? Okay, so here's what I always tell folks is that I know I'm a contrarian to 99.9% of the advice you've probably ever heard about how to generate referrals. If you were to go to Google right now and you said, how do I get referrals? You're going to pull up hundreds and hundreds of articles and book recommendations and videos and trainings to watch. They're going to teach you how to ask. And they're going to teach you how to ask because that's what we've been teaching for decades. The problem with that, though, is I believe, and this is a totally made up statistic, but I think 99% of us hate asking.
Yes.
And so, and everyone I talk to seems to hate asking. I mean, there are always those people who like to ask. They do absolutely exist. There's always some outliers in everything, right? There's always some that can go against the mold and make things work for themselves. But the majority of us hate to ask. So when I started paying attention to how I was going to grow my business, I was like, okay, these referrals seem amazing, right? I mean, the person shows up, they're like, here, take my money. I already trust you. I haven't even met you. Like, give me some more of that, right? Like, that sounds awesome. And then I was like, okay, well, how do I get them? And so like everybody else, I went looking for advice and I was like, whoa, I have to ask. And asking to me feels like a cousin to a cold call.
Yeah, very much so.
Like, right? I'm asking you to do something you're not prepared to do. Just like when you answer the phone and I launch into my cold call spiel, you're like, why did I answer the phone?
Yep.
Right? And so to me, I was like, oh, that doesn't really jive with who I am. And it's not that I'm not a good salesperson. And it's not that I'm not good at sales. And it's not that I don't believe in my business. Those are just the head trash things that people tell you when you're not willing to ask. They're like, well, you must not want it bad enough. I'm like, that's crap.
Yeah.
What it means, though, is that that's not how we want to be sold to. That's not how we don't want to be asked to give people referrals because we feel, right, awkward and uncomfortable when people ask us, which means that's not what we want to do to others. And if the majority of the world doesn't like it, why is that the only piece of advice? So I kind of just set out to figure out, okay, how do I get referrals and how do I do it without asking? And it was a lot of trial and error that I did in my business in the beginning. And then I realized that I actually had figured out kind of a process. But I do want to say, before I kind of talk about a little bit about the process, because this is not complicated. It is not rocket science. It's not something you do one and done and you're going to have results. It is a way that you develop your business. It's just like if you decide to run, SEO or pay per click and you do it every month. It's kind of that same thing. Referrals are a little bit different. You don't have to do something every single month or every single day or every single week, but there's still a consistency to it to make it work. But before I talk a little bit about the process, I do want to mention as well that there are really like 2 types of businesses that do really well with referrals. And so when most people say, who's the best type of business at generating referrals? Hands down, I always say relationship-based businesses
Mhm.
where the decision to go with you comes with a high level of trust. So, and a lot of times this is instantly seen as, okay, so high ticket type purchases, right? So like my financial advisor, my
Mm.
attorney, my CPA, my interior designer, my home builder, right? My business coach, my business consultant, my marketing consultant, right? My life coach, whatever it is, they're a realtor. They're typically seen as those that are relationship based. They spend a lot of time with their clients, right? As a realtor, they're in their car showing houses, CPA, they do their taxes every year. Like there's an
Mhm.
opportunity to build relationships. So that's definitely one level. The other level, though, because I always tell folks, if you build your business from a highly transactional mindset, referrals won't work. But what I have found and discovered over the years of doing this, there's lots of people in the highly transactional industry, like their industry views what they do as highly transactional, but they don't think like that.
Mhm.
They think more like that relationship based business where it's not like, how fast can I get you in? And I don't really take care of you as well as I should. And it's just like, get to the next, right? Get to the next one, get to the next one. So
Mhm.
I have people who go through my business or go through my program and they're like, like I have in Texas, I have a exterior siding and windows company that's been through the program. They're like, we know we're in a highly transactional business. We just don't operate that way.
Mhm.
And I was like, when you choose to think about your clients as relationships that you can form and that you can nurture and maintain, and this does not mean hanging out with them every month, grabbing a happy hour with them, but it does mean
Mhm.
you're going to be intentional about how you nurture that relationship in an ongoing way, even after the work is done. Those are the business who are best suited for referrals because referrals only come from relationships. And relationships are only maintained by ongoing connections. And what you need as a business owner is just a process and a plan to manage those connections, which we call touch points, right? Just outreach.
Mhm.
And so it's really pretty simple when you break it down. But I do want to be really clear that for what I teach to work, you have to be willing to invest some time and energy into taking care of the people who could refer you. It may not just only be clients, and it certainly won't be all of your clients. It could be your centers of influence. It could be other suppliers, right? Other vendors. It's
Mhm.
paying attention to the people who could refer you and then being willing to invest some time and energy into cultivating relationships. Again, I don't mean grabbing lunch every month, right? A lot of times people who can refer you, they're not local to you. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So it's not about
Mm.
that face to face, but it is about your ability and your willingness to have a mindset shift around, I'm going to cultivate some pretty significant relationships because I know those people can refer me and it is the right thing to do to take care of them. Right. And then at the same time, as I'm taking care of them, whether they're clients or centers of influence, I am going to plant some referral seeds so they think about me in a very specific way, but what they feel is like, wow, Stacey really cares about me, right? And she doesn't
Mhm.
forget about me and I matter to her. And then, of course, I'm planting referral seeds. So they're subconsciously thinking about me in a very specific way. And I'm not ever asking, I don't ever say, hey, who do you know? You should be
Mhm.
working with me. Like those words should never come out of your mouth, right?
Right.
And so I think it starts first with understanding the mindset of if referrals are going to work for you, you're going to have to understand that we've got to develop a group of relationships with referral sources. And I don't know if you need a dozen or if you need 2 dozen
Mhm.
or if you need 30 or 40. Some of this will have to do with the volume of referrals you want to receive. But when you're looking at this from that perspective of that idea, and I'm not looking for any business to be 100% by referrals. It happens. I have lots of students who go through my program who get there, but I just want referrals to be the biggest piece of your pie because I know it releases a lot of stress and it releases a lot of time
Yeah.
and money and wondering, oh, is that advertising campaign working, right? Because we can see the referrals coming in. And so when
Mhm.
you think about referrals and what that looks like ultimately, it is your willingness to identify who refers you. Who's referring you now that you should be taking care of? It's having a mindset shift of saying, yeah, I should take care of them. They send me business. They make my life easier. Why
Mhm.
wouldn't I want to take care of them? And then it's being memorable and meaningful with the connection or the outreach or the touch points that you do for those referral sources that you've identified is making sure that you are doing things that impact how they feel about you, which goes back to that Maya Angelou quote that says, I don't always remember what people say or what they did, but you do remember how
Mhm.
they make you feel. And when I feel cared about by
Exactly.
someone, I am more likely to remember someone. They then move into my top of mind. And if I sprinkle in the referral seeds, which I call the secret sauce, then I have them thinking about me in a very specific way. And so it comes from a very genuine place. And you have to be genuine about this. You have to be authentic. You actually have to care about people. So if you're dead inside, this is not a process for you. Okay. But if you, yeah, but if you
100%.
care about people and you do appreciate the fact that someone referred you a new client and you didn't have to work that hard for it, that's the relationship I want you to be willing to cultivate. Right. And it truly is just cultivating that relationship, being memorable and meaningful, which does not mean your e-newsletter you send out once a month. That's not what we're talking about. It's memorable and meaningful connections and outreach or touch points, using right that the right type of language and making sure that it all works together so you stay top of mind. But we're not doing something, we're not mailing you a card every month, right? We're not calling you
Mhm.
every 15 days saying, hey, how's it going? Because we all know what that means. When somebody who owns a business
Yep.
calls us and say, hey, what's up? How's it going? We know where this is headed. So we're not talking about those things. We're talking about things that they don't expect and will surprise and
Mhm.
delight. And I don't mean gifts, right? And some people are like, oh, I got to buy a bunch of gifts. Nope. A lot of people do not have the
Yeah.
budget for that. But there are a number of different things we can do that'll let someone know that we do care about you. And then we just want to plant the right referral seeds. And then we watch that bloom and we do it consistently. And I mean, that's why I've had people who come in my program and they're just listening to what I teach, right? And it's just that idea of you can get a couple of referrals a year and then grow that to 40. You can get a couple of referrals a year and then grow that to whatever number you're looking to grow it. It may take a year
Mhm.
to get there, but then you should consistently be able to hit the number that you're looking for. And again, volume is irrelevant because it depends on what your capacity is to handle. So I guess in some cases, service-based businesses can probably handle more and they need more, right? Versus
Yeah.
a CPA who's
Mhm.
like, well, after 100 clients, I can't take anymore, right? So volume looks different
Right.
depending on the business. But that only impacts the number of then of referral sources you need.
So, could you give an example of something? So, when you were talking about the touch points and reaching out
Mhm.
to the people, I instantly thought about gifts and like the book Giftology.
Right.
But could you mention that it doesn't have to be a gift or you have to buy anything? Could you give an example of something like how that would work without giving a gift? Would you
Sure.
reach out to them on Facebook because it's their birthday? I mean, that seems kind of cheesy, but
So you certainly can. I'm not a big birthday fan because I think it's almost impossible to keep up
yeah,
with because
yeah.
birthdays happen randomly. They're not like happening, on a very specific time. So let me give you three examples, and let me have I'll do one of them as a gift just to kind of show what this looks like, and then I'll do two that are not gifts. So one of the things that I teach my students is to have them understand that there is power, but just behind a handwritten thank you note. And
Okay.
so I think a lot of people hear me say that and they're like, oh, great, I just got to write thank you notes. Please let me put this disclaimer in there. You will not unleash a referral explosion because every once in a while you sit down and write thank you notes. That's not what I'm saying. But when we're doing a random thank you note to someone who's not expecting it as part of an overall orchestrated plan that has, a number of touch points, usually somewhere between 4 and 8 touch points in a year, when we're
Mhm.
doing it as part of that overall plan, and we know what all those touch points are going to be, a thank you card that shows up unexpectedly in August can really delight someone and can impact their memory of how they feel about you and how they
Mhm.
remember you. So a handwritten thank you card, it shouldn't cost you more than the card you're going to write it on and the stamp you're going to mail it with,
Yeah.
right? Super cheap. So random thank you cards is actually one of the touch points that I tell people to consider. Again, you cannot just write thank you cards until you're blue in the face and think you're going to get a whole bunch of referrals. You'll get some low hanging fruit, absolutely, but you will not get consistency. And what I want for people is to consistently be receiving referrals year over year, because that's how we build some freedom and sustainability in our business.
Mhm.
So random thank you cards is one. Another one, depending on which holidays you celebrate, I tell folks, if you're going to take the time, now, if you don't do Christmas cards or Hanukkah cards or holiday cards, you don't need to do this one. But for those people who actually go to the store and buy generic Christmas cards or Hanukkah cards or holiday cards, right? They go and buy those holiday cards and they're generic, and maybe they purchase them online and a robot signs them for them, right? Some machine signs their name,
Mhm. Yeah.
or they get the generic cards like from Hallmark or the grocery store, and then they sit down and sign their names. Okay, so that's lovely that you want to do an outreach touch point. That is that holiday card, but it means nothing. Unfortunately, friends,
Okay.
those are the ones we put in the trash can because it's so generic.
Yep.
So if you're going to do a holiday card, I want you on it, whether that's you and your family, however you define family, whether it's you and your
Mhm.
team of employees and their families. I have a doggy daycare that's in my program, and she sent me an example she did one year where it was her as the owner with her husband and their 3 kids, and their dogs, and then all of her employees and the employees' dogs. And that was
Oh,
the
that's
holiday
cool.
card, right? So now they're clients, right? And they send it to clients and referral sources. Sometimes you can do both, right? So, and now they have
Mhm.
people who are like, wait a minute, that's your dog. Oh my gosh. Like I see you every day and you know my dog. And now I have an idea of who your dog is. And it just sparked a greater connection. Because remember, yes,
That's
I may
cool.
be buying a company because I need a problem solved, but I'm really buying you because I trust you to be the one to solve the problem. Your
Yes.
company just comes along with you. So when we can make connections in that way, that matters. And the clients, I guess, are more likely to maybe expect a Christmas card, but referral sources
Mhm.
aren't. And so, and yes, clients are referral sources, but not only. So the fact that a referral
Mhm.
source could get a Christmas card is really cool. And so you've got things just like that are super simple, aren't going to cost a lot of money, and they're not a gift. But I will tell you, just so with people who are thinking about this, and then there's also like just one-on-one time you can spend with people too. Sometimes just investing in
Mhm.
time with them, like let's grab coffee and let me not say a word about myself and only ask you
Right.
about you, right? That's how that works. There's so many things that you can do, and we teach them based on some categories so that people can understand how they fit, because you can't just send all random thank you cards. You can't send all cards for every
Mhm.
holiday. Like you can't do one type. You need to make a variety of it. That's how it has impact, and that's
Mhm.
the way we get to plant specific referral seeds. But like for an example, a gift idea that I did. So before I started teaching people how to generate referrals without asking, I have an online program and I have a VIP and one-on-one that I do to help companies figure this out and implement it in their business. Before I did that and I discovered my process, I was a business and productivity coach. So I was out there looking to grow and bring in clients just like everybody else. And that's how I discovered my process, was by guinea pigging it on my own business. So when I looked at my referral sources a number of years ago when I was a business coach, what I realized was a number of my referral sources they matched my ideal client, they were business owners who were also parents, right? I got 3 kids. That's kind of my life as a business
Mhm.
owner. My husband's a business owner. That's the world I walk in. It's a world I was very comfortable coaching in. And I had a business failure, so I could see it coming in another business, which made me very
Mhm.
dangerous as a business coach because I could be extremely direct sometimes. So the idea there is I looked at my referral sources and I was like, wow, 80% of my referral sources are parents. Now, whether they worked for a business or owned a business, I noticed that, wow, 80%
Mhm.
of them are parents. So I decided, and it's one thing I teach, I decided to recognize an off guard holiday, and I recognized Mother's Day and Father's Day one year. So for my mothers one year, my referral sources who were also mothers, I sent them a Wonder Woman water bottle. And the card just simply said, never forget you are a hero. Happy Mother's Day, Stacey. When they
Mm.
removed that card where my name was from that water bottle, my logo wasn't on it, my phone number wasn't on it, my website wasn't on it. There was nothing that said Stacey on that Wonder Woman water bottle. But do you think they forgot that I gave them that Wonder
Mm-mm.
Woman water bottle? No, because it was memorable and meaningful. It
Mhm.
told them, wow, Stacey gets it. She sees me and she cares about me, and she's not afraid to show that she cares about me. Right. And so when you think about doing things, they're memorable and meaningful. That piece matters. And I know that's the piece people are like, I don't know what to do. Right. I'm like, that's okay. I've been doing this for years. I'm a treasure trove of ideas. And that's why I tell my students, I'm like, ask the question. Like, there's a lot in my program, but then there's more that it's always available. But the piece that people forget is we're not sending gifts and cards just to send gifts and cards. We are also using very specific language so that we can move ourselves into the subconsciousness of our referral sources, so they think about us, wow, they really care about me. And then subconsciously they think about us like,
Mhm.
how can I help take care of them too? And we're already kind of telling them subconsciously referrals.
Wow, that's a lot. Condensed down. Uh, and it's really cool because I really like everything that you said there, especially in the examples that you gave. I'm not super consistent about this, but I have a friend of mine who is extremely consistent with writing a letter every day. I try to do 5 a week, thank you letters of some sort. And then um, the personalized holiday cards, I really love that. I'm anti Christmas cards, and it's mainly because of that reason, and that mixed with trying to stand out of the crowd. So we do half year Christmas cards.
Mm-hmm.
So Christmas in July, or it's actually June, but and then the gifts. I love the idea that I love the fact that you mentioned not putting your logo on there, because so often you try to use that as an opportunity to start branding ourselves, but not having your logo on there, it makes you even more memorable, and they're more likely just to leave it out and tell people more about it instead of just sticking in a random drawer somewhere.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to throw away a card that has people's faces on it and their kids.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best place for them to find out more about you and pick up your book?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is called Generating Business Referrals Without Asking. It's available wherever books are sold. My podcast is Roadmap to Grow Your Business. So those are two great resources to use. My home base is my website, StaceyBrownRandall.com. I know you'll link to that in the show notes, so I won't tell people how to spell Stacey. It does have an E. But that's great places to kind of go and get started and kind of figure out like who I'm all about and like who I help and what my business looks like and what I'm kind of ultimately after with helping other small business owners and solopreneurs. But there's also a great quiz that I have. It's called the Referral Ninja Quiz. It's just a 9 simple question quiz that you can take for free on my website at StaceyBrownRandall.com/quiz. And it helps you understand what level of we call referral ninja are you. So what level of a referral ninja are you right now? And then it's going to kind of help you understand, okay, you're a beginner. What does it look like to get to the master level? And then I've got resources that can support you in that journey. And of course, obviously I do have a program if people are interested, but I always tell folks, before you go that route, why don't you take the quiz and see where you are? Pay attention a little bit to the things that I do. Obviously you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, but just kind of pay attention to like what I teach before you decide, you want to take that next step. The quiz is a great place to start.
Cool. Thank you again for spending some time with us and coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Have a wonderful day.